where he will hold that arm during the pivoting of the SPDM body. As I mentioned earlier, that arm OTCM combination weighs about 775 pounds, so there's definitely some skill and technique we've had to develop to be able to handle those. Here you can see Rick has released the last body restraint bolt and is pivoting the SPDM body up to about 60 degrees. This puts the shoulder in a good position for Mike to position the first arm for installation onto the body. As he guides that into position, Rick Linehan will then come down and start working, installing the mechanical fasteners with assistance, again, by Mike Foreman. Once that first arm is installed, the crew will start working on installation of the second arm. To this, again, they remove that arm from its stowage bracket and move to install it onto the shoulder. We have a little video of some 1G training the crew has done here at JSC. This shows Rick Linehan using a zero-gravity simulator. This basically suspends the arm and OTCM from a harness and allows the crew to feel what the mass handling will be like during the precise installation guidance into the stowage and connection interfaces, with Mike Foreman guiding it into its clevis bracket. At this point, with both arms connected, the crew is going to go spend some time removing any remaining thermal covers which we didn't have access to before, and preparing the SPDM for final assembly. There's also some launch restraints which we're going to start to secure at the end of this EVA to prepare the Spacelab pallet for its landing configuration. That wraps up EVA 2. It's one of our longest EVAs, coming in about 7 hours. So the crew will be ready for a good night's sleep after that EVA. Can I get the next slide, please? EVA 3 is going to be Rick's final spacewalk on this mission. He'll be accompanied by first-time spacewalker Bob Benkin. The objectives of this EVA are to finish up the assembly and outfitting of the SPDM robot and to prepare the Spacelab pallet for its final landing configuration. Additionally, once that's complete, Rick Linehan will ride the space station arm down to the payload bay to retrieve and transfer some on-orbit spares to the space station. Additionally, there is a materials experiment package which he'll be transferring to the Columbus module. Finally, Bob Benkin will free float down to the payload bay and get the second part of that materials experiment package and install it on the pallet that Rick pre-positioned for him. To show that, I have the video prepared. If we can run that, please. Coming back up to work on the Spacelab pallet, we've repositioned one of the arms so it's a little bit closer to the Spacelab pallet, and this provides better access to the OTCM end, the gripper end of it, for some thermal cover removal that we have to do there. Rick Linehan is going to get right back in the arm at the beginning of the EVA, and he, along with Bob Benkin's help, will release the tool holder assembly and OTP from their launch location on the Spacelab pallet. Rick will carry both of these objects, piece of hardware, over to their installation position, where he will guide them into their interface brackets, allowing Bob Benkin to secure them with the fasteners. Here's the OTP getting installed, and finally the THA. At this point, we're going to free up Rick, as I said, to go down to the payload bay to retrieve some of the on-orbit spares. And Bob Benkin's going to finish up final closeout of the Spacelab pallet to prepare it for its landing. There's a number of clamps that we'd previously opened he has to secure closed. There's some Keep Alive umbilical connectors he has to secure. And there's some thermal blankets that he has to put in place just to make sure everything is tight and packed up for the landing. Finally, there's the camera light pan tilt assembly, which he will install onto the body, providing the imagery and illumination capability for the robot. Picking up in the payload bay with Rick, he's going to retrieve the LWAPA. This is the platform for the materials experiment, which is going to be installed on the Columbus module. From there, Rick's going to return back to the payload bay, where there are 3 different on-orbit spares. There's a SSRMS, or Space Station Yaw joint, This will provide the capability to change out one of the joint segments on the space station robotic arm if necessary. Additionally, there are 2 direct current switching unit ORUs, which we're going to remove and transfer up to space station as well. Each of these ORUs finds their home on the ESP2 pallet. Rick Linehan will come around the backside on the underside of the pallet and install the SSRMS yaw joint. He'll make a round trip back to the payload bay to retrieve the first DCSU. Once he has that ORU, he will be installing that onto the top of the pallet as well. Make one last round trip to the payload bay to retrieve the final ORU and install it on the ESP2 pallet as well. It's going to be a pretty busy EVA for Rick, so that's going to be the end of his tasks. Bob Benkin, after finishing up with the SLP cleanup, will come down to the payload bay and retrieve the material experiments packages. These are about briefcase size experiments, which he'll translate up to the Columbus platform where Rick had installed the base for these experiments. He will then open up the briefcases and expose the material experiments to the space environment. That wraps up EVA 3. Again, it's going to require a lot of heavy coordination between the robotics team and the EVA team as well. If I get the next slide. EVA 4 and 5 will both be performed by Bob Benkin and Mike Foreman. EVA 4 will start off with the RPCM, or Remote Power Control Module, R&R.